Once therapist and patient have identified the hotspots, that is, the worst moments in the patient's trauma, and their meaning, the next step is to begin to update them. Discovering information that contradicts the worst meanings at the time of the hotspot and linking this information to this moment in memory helps to update their meaning and make them less emotional. Once the patient has updating information, the next step is to bring the hotspot and the new information to mind at the same time, usually using reliving. This will link the updating information to this moment in memory. In this video, you'll see excerpts of sessions in which the therapist and client are working together to update the patient's hotspots. Hi, Amanda. So just to recap, in our last session, we talked through your trauma in a lot of detail, and then we identified two hotspots, two really upsetting moments. I thought what we would do today is work on updating those hotspots and making them less emotional for you. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I think so.
So the way we would normally update hotspots is for you and I to think through together information that you may have now that you didn't have then at the time of the trauma. So just to remind you, these were your two worst moments that we identified last week.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to just let me know which one you would like to start working on now.
I think the one where I saw the headlights coming towards me, that was when I thought, I'm going to die.
Yes, that was a really difficult moment, and I agree that would be a good one to update now because we already have quite a lot of information, new information that we can use to update that hotspot. The therapist will be updating not just the thought, I'm going to die, which the patient feared at the time of the trauma, but also what dying means to the patient. Here the therapist recaps the worst meaning of the hotspot. So you look to the left and you see headlights coming towards you, and you then have the thought, that's it, I'm going to die.
Yeah, I thought I would die.
That's really frightening. We also learned last week that the worst meaning about dying for you is that you wouldn't see your daughter Chloe again, or your husband Michael.
Yeah, it would be so awful if I didn't see Chloe or Michael again.
I wrote that worst meaning here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like us to now move on to this section, new information.
Yeah.
And let's think through what new information do you have now that you didn't have then at the time of the trauma. So if you just think through whether or not you survived the accident. Did you die at the time of the accident?
I know now that I didn't die. Yeah.
That's excellent. Let's write that down. And what about seeing Chloe again? Do you see Chloe again?
I do see Chloe. I'm helping her with her music exam at the moment.
Excellent. I'll write that down too. And what about Michael? Do you see Michael again?
I see Michael every day.
Excellent. Okay, so would you agree with the following? I now know I didn't die. I survived the accident. I see Michael every day. I see Chloe every day, and I'm helping her to study for her music exam.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and when you focus on this new information, how does it make you feel?
Better.
The therapist now links the new information with the trauma memory. To do this, the therapist will guide the patient to relive the hotspot moment and to run the image on to include the new information they have discovered. So what I would like us to do now is to link that new information to the trauma memory. So I'm going to ask you to relive the worst moment and then to bring in that new information. Does this sound okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Excellent. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes and talk me through what happens. So you see bright headlights coming towards you. Talk me through what goes through your mind, what you feel, and then what you know now, all the new information that you have now.
Yeah, I think I can give that a go.
Excellent. So if you just want to get comfortable, close your eyes, and then talk me through that worst moment.
I'm driving towards the M4, and I'm driving quite slowly because the traffic is heavy. When I turn left, I can see bright headlights moving really quickly towards me. I know the car is going to hit me, and I just think, that's it, I'm going to die.
Okay, you're doing a great job, Amanda. I'd like you to bring in that new information now. What do you know now?
I know now that I didn't die. I'm alive, I'm here. I see Michael every day and I see Chloe every day. I'm helping her study for her music exam.
And can you picture Michael and Chloe and all of you together?
I can picture us together at her last piano performance. We were all standing together after she performed, and she's wearing a purple dress and we're all smiling together.
That's excellent. Just keep that image in mind, and in a moment I'll ask you to open your eyes. You can open your eyes. Notice the therapist uses different modalities to fully update the hotspot: verbal information and imagery. The imagery captures an event that has taken place after the trauma and is another reminder that the patient's worst fears did not happen. Physical information, such as movement, may also be used to update hotspots, such as encouraging the patient to move in a way that would not be possible if their worst fears had come true. When the updating is successfully done, there should be a shift in the patient's emotions. When you were going through the hotspot just then, how distressing was it to you out of 100, where 100's really distressing and 0's not at all?
About 60, I think.
So quite distressing.
Mm-hmm.
And how now did it feel? How much did it feel like it was happening now all over again out of 100?
I think about 60%, yeah.
Okay. And when you brought that new information in, how distressing did it feel?
Quite a lot less distressing, I think maybe 20%.
Okay. And how now did it feel?
Again, less, 10%.
Okay. So I'm wondering what you can do during the week when the hotspot comes to mind to remind yourself of what you know now.
I can look at this photo that I have of me and Michael and Chloe after her last piano performance. It's this one here, actually.
That's really sweet.
And I can look at the information that we were out today about what I know now.
Excellent. Those are great ideas. It is also common to call on experts such as engineers, nurses or doctors, or consult expert sources, reliable information located online, to find information to update hotspots. On some occasions, it may also be helpful to draw the trauma to help the patient discover that their course of action was likely the most helpful course of action at the time. In this clip, we see the therapist work with the patient on her second hotspot. They consult an expert to help update it. Okay, so let's think about your second hotspot. And in this hotspot, you see the warning light come on your dashboard, and then you think the car is going to explode.
Yeah, I thought my car would explode and I would be trapped and burned to death. I know now that the car didn't explode, and I wasn't trapped. I could get out and I didn't die. But my car was really badly damaged and it felt like it would explode. I don't want to risk that by getting in a car again.
That's understandable, that you would feel quite cautious and frightened about getting back into a car. It does sound like you have a lot of new information. You know that you weren't trapped and the car didn't burn and the car didn't explode. But the new information doesn't feel as reassuring to you. It still feels like the car could have exploded, and you're very aware that the car was very badly damaged.
Yeah, it still feels very likely to me.
I'm wondering what the significance is of a car that is badly damaged, what the worst thing is about a car that's badly damaged, what that means to you.
Well, my car was a complete write-off in the accident. It was so badly damaged. I think that means the accident was really serious. It felt like the car would explode and I would be trapped and burned.
Okay. I'm not an expert in cars, so I don't have all the information about what it means if a car is really badly damaged. And I'm not sure if a car is badly damaged, if that really means that it's about to explode or if it has some other sort of significance. I'm wondering how we could get more information about the meaning of damage to a car.
We could call a car company.
That's a great idea. We could call a car company, or The idea that came to my mind was calling an expert or an engineer who knows a lot more about cars than I or than you do, and maybe asking them a few questions about what it means when a car is badly damaged. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds useful.
So what I can do is arrange for us to speak to a car expert in our next session. Does that sound useful?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so I'll arrange for us to speak to an engineer in our next session. It might be helpful right now if we could put our heads together and think about some questions to ask this expert.
Okay.
Therapist and client write out questions to ask the expert. Question 1. Could my car have exploded? Question 2. Is the car protecting me when it looks really badly damaged? Experts can usually be found through online searches, through local businesses or associations, or if relevant, contacting the Automobile Association or local hospitals or police stations. In the next session, the patient speaks to an expert. She learns that it was extremely unlikely that her car could have exploded because the petrol tank was lined with Kevlar. She also learns that a car's function is to crumple in an accident, so a car that is badly damaged is usually a sign of the car's safety system working properly. The therapist and patient incorporate the new information into the hotspot. The patient then relives the hotspot with the new information. To show herself that she was not trapped and she can move about freely, the patient gets up and moves about.
So I can see the warning light come up on my dashboard, and I think I'm trapped. I think that the car will catch on fire and explode. I know now that I wasn't trapped. I could get out, and the car didn't explode. The expert I talked to actually explained that it was really unlikely that the car would explode because the fuel tank is lined with Kevlar.
Excellent. And what did you learn about what it means when a car is badly damaged?
So the expert said that cars are designed to get really badly damaged in an accident, and crumple on impact. And the car looking badly damaged was just a sign that it was doing its safety job properly.
Excellent work, Amanda. Can you show yourself that you're not trapped and you can move around?
Yeah, I can move freely.
Well done. When the hotspot comes to mind after this session, the patient will remind herself of what she knows now by moving about freely and looking at the notes she took when speaking to the expert. Key points. Once therapist and patient have identified the hotspots, that is the worst moments in the patient's trauma, and their meaning, the next step is to begin to update them. Discovering information that contradicts the worst meanings at the time of the hotspot and linking this information to this moment in memory helps to update their meaning and make them less emotional. The information is often discovered by discussing the way the trauma unfolded. Some of the things the patient expected to happen may not have come true, or details of the way the trauma happened may provide answers to the patient's concerns. Therapist and patient may also consult experts or expert sources or draw the trauma to help the patient discover updating information. Once the patient has updating information, the next step is to bring the hotspot and the new information to mind at the same time, usually using reliving. This will link the updating information to this moment in memory. While the patient is holding the hotspot in mind, usually using imaginal reliving, they remind themselves of what they know now. This can be done in different ways: saying what they have learned, looking at their written information or pictures, moving in a way that would not be possible if their worst fears had come true, or bringing to mind an image that captures the meaning of the new information. For troubleshooting, please see the manual.